start with last night before we moved to your game?
Yeah.
Did you watch?
Yeah, of course I did.
What did you think?
I actually really enjoyed it, but I know there's mixed reactions around the community. I've got mates that watch footy and love footy that had a different opinion to me, but I thought it was pure. I thought there was some good football. There was a good contest. Obviously, Richmond early came out and gave it their all, and Carlton were able to fight back. I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the fact that it was slightly shorter. When you're watching another game of footy. The crowd's an interesting part. Obviously, we all miss our supporters and our members. We'd love them to be there, but at this point in time, the priority's health. So, does playing games of footy to an empty stadium help people's health and well-being? I think it does.
What about mental stimulation of players when they do something right or do something wrong? Is that affected by no people?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's when you play in front of large crowds, there's more pressure as a player, and you feel that there's instant feedback on what you've actually just completed. So the game may change slightly, in that there might be a few more risks taken with the football in offence, and that may be a good thing for us, as an industry. But we train in similar conditions. I'm sure Richmond have trained at the MCG at some point with no crowd. We just trained on Adelaide Oval with exactly the same atmosphere we're going to have tomorrow. So our players are used to it. It's just really people watching it on TV.
Is there a component of the game that will change on account of no people being there? Say goal kicking, no distraction or less distraction. Should we see that being improved?
Well, it's a hard one to say because we haven't seen any results yet. But you would have thought, with not much going on behind the goals, players are able to focus, pinpoint what it is he's trying to work on. Less noise, less sound. You'd hope that the pressure on that particular person is less. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. As far as the rest of the game goes, I think when the players get into it, there's still a fair bit of voice and a fair bit of sound in around the contest. So the contest didn't seem to change last night. The game was won and lost, in that contest.
Maybe one thing we saw was a hygiene issue. Obviously, they tackled and all that during the game, but with handshakes afterwards and the players drinking the same water bottle. That be something the pros will make sure they don't do?
So we've got separate water bottles for our players. They're numbered. We've made a focus on that. The shaking of hands is a tough one. I mean, we've celebrated Fisher being selected for his first game, and it was hard to not have stacks on. They're emotional and they're excited for an individual, so they want to show their passion and the fact that they love the fact that he's playing. So it's hard to sort of keep them apart in that moment. I guess the fact that we spend so much time together and we've done everything possible to avoid, contracting the virus is, we back in our group to stay healthy. It's an interesting one though, because when viruses do go through football clubs or professional sporting organisations, they go through pretty quickly.
But also the opposition, shaking hands with the opposition.
Yeah, and again, you're backing in an opposition club to be doing the same in that respect. So they've spent a lot of time in behind closed doors with just their inner sanctum. We've been strictly told only our inner sanctum is allowed to come to the game. So there's a lot of things. We're standing here now 3 metres apart. I probably won't go and give you a hug after this as we walk off. Yeah, we've been business as usual, but we're also mindful of that. This is a big change when it comes to game day, so we've made sure we've had those discussions. It's not going to be a shock to run out there and all of a sudden the ball goes into the stand and no one knows what's going on. We've talked through some of the logistics when it comes to what happens in different situations. There's a different time frame on the game, so rotations we're still at 90. That's going to look sharper. I think last night the teams were doing around 70 in the end, come the end of the game. So there are going to be differences. We don't want our players to be alarmed by that on a game day. All of a sudden it's something different, so we've touched on a few of those.
Taylor Walker named on the wing. Is he likely to spend a lot of time there?
Probably not a lot of time, but we'll definitely have a look at it at some stage. Whether it's this week, we've trained with him in a number of different positions, and you saw through the Marsh series we played him a fair bit, pinch hitting out in the ruck, and we really like what we saw. It's a different dynamic for the group. We've made a few other small changes to our lineup and gone a little taller ahead of the ball. There's no hiding from that. We didn't quite get that done in Marsh series. That gives us the opportunity for Tex to go and play a number of different roles, and we love the way he's going about things at the moment. He's moving well, he's confident. So if it means that we see an opportunity or a match-up that we might be able to expose, we'll have a look at it.
But maybe plays a bit more up the ground at times.
At times, yeah, depending on how the game's going as well.
So the actual name jumping on the wing, is that a little bit his doing? Just a nod to his
That was to give him a little bit of a, okay, yeah, we'll give you a look at it, maybe. We've enjoyed the banter that he's had in around that area, and it has started out initially as a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek by him, and then we gave it a try, and there's something in it.
Matty, I trialled him in the ruck, back up ruck and pictured him against Gold Coast. The fact you've got Billy Frampton back in the team to support Riley O'Brien tomorrow, does that mean Tex won't do any ruck work tomorrow?
Not necessarily. It's one of those things that it's a long season. We've got Billy in because we felt we missed something more than just the ruck last week in our last hit out in the Marsh game. Billy's doing some fantastic stuff in around the ruck. So our priority would be for Billy to go in there and help out. But if the game plays out in a certain way and Billy's going really well ahead of the footy, well, maybe we'll have a look at Tex. We were really happy with what we saw out of his ruck work, especially the stuff he was doing in the forward line. So it's definitely something we'll look at.
Great still starter. Named him on half-back.
Oh, look, some of the namings in the paper, you got to bear with us a little. Yeah, you're right. It's an interesting one. He'll play on ball. We're not hiding from that. We named him at half-back. The best part for Brody Smith is he can play both. If we need to at any time and it's not working for us, across that half-back line, we need some punch. Well, he's been in some pretty good form, so we might have a look at it. But we'd love to keep him around the football because he's probably been our form mid throughout the Marsh series.
And a lot of coaches will go through, I suppose, a bit of a wave of emotion when they approach their first game. Obviously, the added element for you. Can you just share a few thoughts on how you've taken the approach to your first game?
Well, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. It's probably made it a little easier. It's taken the focus off of tomorrow. If we talk 2 weeks out, there's a lot more priority in other areas that I've been looking at. And one's family, one's our family within the organisation, making sure that everyone's in a good space, that everyone's staying healthy. So there's been other priorities. It's been able to sort of take me away from, I guess, the details, and I've been able to sleep at night. I'm sure tonight will be an interesting one, leading into a game tomorrow. But we get a really good crew as well. I work with a really good group of people, both admin and players, assistant coaches, that are sort of taking a fair bit of load on board as well. We'll back in the work we've done, so I'm confident that we'll come out and perform well. I'll know more probably tomorrow when the first ball's bounced.
You got a young forward line, I know Tex and Ollie that play up there for the majority, but on paper, you've only got one player above 22, that's Tom Lynch. Talk us through that decision and what you expected from that group of players. Yeah,
when we look back at our most recent game, we underperformed forward of the ball. It was for a number of different reasons, and we've addressed those over the last week and a half. And we feel really confident that it had nothing to do with experience and age. It was a structural issue that we were facing, and we've done, as I said, we've worked on that, and we've seen instant results in it. We feel really confident in our young group that they're here to compete. And we saw later in that game against the Gold Coast that Benny Davis is playing some good footy. We just need to get him in the contest more often. Fogarty's another one that if we're able to get him to as many contests as we can, he's outstanding in those moments. Some of that, will come back to just getting more and more games into these guys, and that's why we're happy to go in with a young forward line.
More about height, you said structure, more about getting some more height in there.
Yeah, there's structure and there's positioning and there's mindset too on how you're going about things, and sometimes it's just embracing the fact that it's not going to be perfect, and we know that for a fact. Come tomorrow, we're playing against a side that will not allow it to be perfect. They're a really high quality side in that area, so we know it's going to be challenging. Our guys have got to be able to embrace that and take it on board.
More contest, better than contest.
Yeah, that's what we're after. We want to see more of a fight. We just haven't been able to pin that ball in our front half. I mean, the numbers, if you do the stats and you look through it, if you're having sort of 10 front of centre turnovers a game, it's not likely that you're getting the result in the end.
A few players this week have spoken about the importance of even celebrating goals with no one around. That becomes more important. Who sort of leads that from your point of view? Who are the players that can do that?
Yeah, we saw some of it last night too. It was interesting when goals were kicked. You could hear some of the louder voices, the guys that. What you find is most of the experienced guys step up into that area, but we've got a few young guys that don't mind getting loud when the time's right. These are the small things we've spoken about as a group that, there is a different dynamic after a goal's kicked and we've got to enjoy playing footy. We've got to get up and about and part of that's when you're kicking a goal, it's enjoying it together and celebrating. Now, we didn't see too many out-of-the-box celebrations last night, but our guys, I think, hopefully they'll embrace that if we're able to get on the scoreboard. And we've got a few guys that'll step up. Some of the older boys, I'm sure you'll hear through the microphones.
I was speaking to Brody Smith yesterday, and he said that there are a few boys that I reckon might have celebrations planned. Do you sort of have any idea about what boys might be going down that route to really pump the boys up?
Yeah, it's a hard one, that, because when you're a coach, you're a little bit more measured. Let's get the contest right before we start organising celebrations. We've seen it over the time in soccer and in other sports where they've had T-shirts on underneath. I don't think we're quite there yet in this country. We're a little bit more straight line. Like it'd be embarrassing if you started preparing things and then didn't kick one for the game. Our groups, their focus is on contests because we know, as I said before, we know it's coming, and we'll get that right and then let the celebrations look after themselves if we're enjoying our footy.
Just a line about Fisher, but you obviously, told yesterday about playing his first game. Obviously good and confident he can step straight into the kicks.
Yeah, and it'll be a journey for him. There's still a lot to learn, and as a first year player coming in, he's put himself up for selection pretty much from day one, on and off field. We picked him up obviously really early in the draft. So what you find with those players is they've done a fair bit of work in the lead up to being drafted. He is no exception to that. He's been outstanding across this journey. Talia has been able to take him under his wing, and they've worked really closely together. So there's already a connection there. We felt like he was up to playing round one. And again, the more games we can get into these guys, the better they're going to become, because we don't have a jar of experience under the desk. They actually earn it by being out there and playing footy. Yeah, well, we've had a big week. Knowing where the industry's at and the way the game's going to be played with limited people able to come into the stadium, we've had a really big week for Sloaney. There's a risk in that because we want to get him through all the training sessions first before you start celebrating. But we started on Monday with, watching some vision of his career. We had a number of people send through messages via video. Some of his ex-players, which was it was an emotional day. It was really powerful for him to hear how much respect he's got around the industry, as well as within our club. So we'll do whatever we can tomorrow. We're still in talks with the AFL on what we can actually do in around that. But it'd be nice. I guess the history of the game is to have a banner up for someone like that. I know a banner's been made. You may see some coaches pulling up a banner, which would be a first. But.
There's obviously universal love that you touched on. Is there anything since you've been in the club that's surprised you or gone a bit further than you thought
about Sloaney?
Yeah, I mean, everyone loves him, but from an outsider to an insider's point of view, I guess.
No, but only because everything I've heard since being inside is exactly the way I think he's respected around the league. In fact, I know he is. I've been at a number of other clubs where it's always discussed, the best players in the game, what level of respect do they earn, and he's one of those guys that sits right up on top. You go back to Matty Richardson days when he was playing, he was just loved by the whole league. We loved the way he went about it, the passion he showed. Well, Sloaney sort of sits up in that category, and I think he's got a massive amount of respect. And I had it before I got here for him, and then I was just able to see it internally, what he meant to the staff and what he meant to his teammates.
Also, a little bit less experience in
Yeah, well, they're a young side. They've probably had 12 months of being in that space, working with their playing group. These guys have played, coming on sort of 10, 20 games. So they're a year down the track. They're going to bring a real fight. We know that. I know Sydney reasonably well. I know Johnny Longmire well, and have huge respect for the way he goes about it. So coming back to that point about the contest, it's going to be on. Our guys are really looking forward to it because it's something that we're right in our infancy of working on that. We're really driving contest as our number one priority. We haven't nailed it yet throughout this pre-season consistently. We've had some patches where we've been able to perform really well in it, so we know it's going to work for us across the long term. At this point, just the consistency of it needs to be right on, especially with the game where it's at the moment. It's a shorter game, 4 quick quarters. We want to come out ready to go because Sydney are very good at that.